Hello and welcome to an all-new episode of Anime Brain Freeze. We are your ferociously fiery hosts.
I am John.
And I'm CC, and when there's just too much cool anime to watch, we've got you covered. Today we will return to the headquarters of Company 8 to review the second season of Atsushi Ōkubo's Fire Force. And since it's our season finale, after that we will give out our Best of the Season awards, as usual. But first, John is gonna dish out 2 mini-reviews in our new section, The Quick and the Dead, so get ready for a hot mess of an episode, because, let's be honest, that's just how we roll. And of course, don't pause the pod, we'll be right back!
Right, so The Quick and the Dead. We kind of decided, we did this real quick last time, but we kind of decided to do this in lieu of having a shows that we dropped segment. I mean, those might fall under the umbrella of this at some point in the future, but most of what we drop is what we say we drop in the sneak peek at the top of each season. So, that aside, this is for more of the quick fire reviews for things that we watched and finished, but don't necessarily feel like committing to a full review of. So, I got 2 today. First is Tonikawa, which is short for Tonikaku Kawaii, Fly Me to the Moon. And the show was, it was about this sudden romance between these two characters. One of the characters gets hit by a bus and almost dies. But yes, and the girl he falls in love with may or may not be Kaguya, Princess of the Moon, which I alluded to in our last podcast. It's pretty much all but confirmed, but they don't really do much with it within this season of the show, which is like, we have this all but foregone conclusion, and it's just sort of sitting there on the table at the end of the season like, okay, I guess that's it.
You're constantly waiting for the other shoe to drop.
Yes, because the girl, Tsukasa, is always making references to things like, so the boy Nasa is always like, hey, we should go to a museum or this, that, or the other thing, or see some historical sites. And because presumably the implication is that Tsukasa has been around for a long, long time, so she's seen everything there is to see. So when they go to see this, in this one episode, they go to see this old shrine, and Tsukasa's like, yeah, it's not there because it was gone like hundreds and hundreds of years ago, and heavily implying that, oh, I was here when that was still here. So, and they sort of really breadcrumb that along, and NASA is a good kid, but he's a fucking dumbass, and he never seems to put 2 and 2 together. So we kind of get left hanging on that note at the end of the show. It's at least a very wholesome romance between the two characters, and I didn't dislike it because of that, but boy, oh boy, 7 Arcs kind of phoned it in on the production side.
Ugh.
Like, I don't expect crazy Sakuga out of a slice of life with a twist story, but they had a real hard time keeping the characters on model from moment to moment, and it was a little jarring. So, I mean, I don't know if I'd call it a huge deal breaker, but it's noticeable, and it's not great when you're noticing it so often. But everything else about the show is fine, I guess. And I don't think it's a show I would say, hey, don't watch this. But, you should probably be aware going into that. A friend of mine linked me to the manga back when it first started. I'm sure I said this before, because it was created by the same guy who made Hayate no Gotoku. And I was like, oh, yeah, check out his new work. And, I read a few chapters and I kind of fell off it. So I was really glad to see you got this anime adaptation. I just wish it got treated a little bit better. But yeah.
Is that the biggest downside to it, or are there other gripes you have with it?
Yeah, I think that's the biggest sort of thing that grinds my gears about it.
So what's the biggest plus?
Biggest plus is that, it seems to be mostly pretty faithful to, the manga from what I had read. So I'm glad they at least kept true to the spirit that was there. There were a couple things in the manga that weren't there. Like, so Hayate, if you know, was a very reference-heavy comedy. Tonikawa in the manga is not like that, but in the anime, they snuck a few things under the radar that were like, all right, I see you guys doing some goofy shit, and I appreciate that. That's funny, because there's an early episode where Nasa is trying to figure out, how big of a bed would we need if we wanted to sleep in the same bed, and he's trying to do the math, and the characters he pictures in his head laying on the bed are two characters from Danganronpa. So I'm like, okay, but they're not. They're different colors, so it's okay. It's not the same.
All right. It's a reference, not a theft.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. It's. And I've said this before about Japanese reference humor. I like that it's like, if you get it, you get it. It's not like, this is the reference. Do you get it? Ha!
Yeah, it's not super in your face. There's even some of that, like in Jujutsu Kaisen, that I really appreciate, where it's just like, yeah, there's some name drops here, but it's not.
There's some weird name drops.
Yeah. But it's not
okay, because it's kind of funny.
It's super on the side. It's like, it's not, oh my god, he said that thing, or he said that thing. It's just like, it's just basic conversation, and it's funny. Especially Yuji does it a lot in terms of also movie reference and shit like that. And the other one being Nobara. So those two dish out a lot of references, I think. Yeah, we'll get to that when we get to review of Jujutsu Kaisen, but I also appreciate that.
But yeah, if you want to watch Tonikawa, it's on Crunchyroll, and if you're not too worried about how the characters look on screen, it's fine. It's fine to watch. It's okay. The other show is Love Live. Full title of the show: Love Live Nijigasaki High School Idol Club. We're going to call it Love Live Nijigaku going forward, because that's how everyone else shortens it.
That's already long enough.
Yes. So this show, again, it's Love Live. It's about school idols. It's about trying to get the band back together when the class president decides to disband the school idol club due to a difference in ideologies between the girls. And I mean, the band gets back together pretty quickly, but then a lot of the story after that is each one of the characters' stories, and trying to see a little bit of what makes each of them unique in their story and their own individual stories, and trying to carve out their own unique identity as a school idol. The show was, it was fine. It was not as emotionally strong as Sunshine, but I also felt the way about the first season of Sunshine, and then the second season had me crying a fucking ocean worth of tears at the end.
Mm-hmm. I remember.
But they kind of teased a second season, because they had the big school idol festival at the end, and one of the characters kind of offhandedly says, "Wow, I guess we're gonna have to do this again." And I'm like, "Oh, okay, gotcha." So they still got time to got me. The characters are. There's a few characters that I really liked. I guess I'll run down a few of them real quick. There was this one character, Rina, who she's very sort of shy and introverted, and she has trouble openly expressing herself. Like, she has one facial expression, and it's just this neutral face. And, she kind of expresses herself with this sketchbook that she has, where she draws different faces into it and puts it over her own face. And, her story is all about just trying to, gain more confidence and be able to express herself more openly and making more friends. And that's why she wants to be, a school idol. And she's a character I thought I would at least be interested in, but she turned out to be really great. So
it's always nice when, a show and its characters surprise you like that. Where it's like in the beginning you have a character and you're like, why is that character here? And then by the end it's like your favorite character. It's like, what happened?
yeah.
Writers, tell me your magic trick.
There's Kasumi, she's this little shitbird who she just wants to show everyone, I'm the cutest school idol of them all. And it's like, okay, all right. And she starts off sort of very brazen like that, but then you sort of see that she's sort of butted heads with one of the other girls, Setsuna, and a lot of her story ends up being like coming to an understanding that I see that we wanted different things, but I'm sorry that, the two of us ended up, it was basically my fault that the School Idol Club ended up getting disbanded. And they, come to this sort of understanding and rekindling of the friendship. And, that's really nice too. Setsuna is secretly, not so secretly, the school council president. Who disbanded the club in the first place, and she has she's trying to keep up this air of being very proper and the upstanding president of the class, when she really wants to do the idol stuff and get into her super nerdy shit that she loves, but they don't really go super into it, but I think she kind of pushes those feelings down a bit because there might be something with her parents that they expect of her, and they don't really go into that super hard. So that's why give me like a second season for maybe some of that, please. But there's some interesting potential for more story with her. But yeah, I don't think this is the strongest Love Live has been, but it certainly had more interesting characters in it than I was thinking. I was just going into it being like, oh, this is going to be another Love Live, so I guess I'll go watch it. I will say this, though. The CG keeps getting better.
How? I mean, considering how bad it was, that doesn't necessarily have to be a high bar, but
no,
I'm glad to hear it.
But yeah, going from the original to Sunshine was a big jump. This is, maybe not an equally big jump going from Sunshine to Nijigasaki, but it does look a lot better in comparison. It's good to see that Sunrise is, putting in the work to make it look better and better each time. I appreciate that.
I mean, I think that's not Sunrise, but let's hope that Zombieland Saga's second season won't have as much of distracting CGI as the first one did. So,
I mean, I originally thought that was for a certain purpose, but I guess it wasn't.
Yeah.
But so we'll have to see what happens. But yeah, I think on its own, Love Live Nijigasaki is enjoyable enough, and it's kind of standalone from the previous series, so you don't need to.
Does it set itself up for a second season though?
A little bit.
Okay, so they leave the door open a bit, but not necessarily gonna do something with it.
Right. It's not like with Sunshine where a little bit of it was predicated on knowledge from the original series. Nijigaku's kind of stands on its own.
Okay.
But yeah, if you want to check that out, it is on Funimation now, and I think it's worth watching. Oh, they also sort of leaned a lot more into this show is a musical more than ever before, because there is definitely a unique musical number every episode. And they do that every time. And they're like, yep, nope. They went full High School Musical with Love Live. About time they did it.
I'm surprised they haven't done that specific thing yet, actually. I'm kind of a bit shocked, actually.
I mean, they did, but they didn't lean into it as heavily as they did this time around. Someone on Twitter...
Does the whole school join in at some point?
No.
Okay.
No, we got that in Sunshine, though.
All right. Okay.
But yeah, someone at one point on Twitter mentioned that this show seems to take place in what they described as the music video verse, because when one of the girls breaks out into song, the world around them seems to start changing into like a music video type thing. It's like, oh, this is all right.
Interesting.
Yeah, we're just, again, full musical. Full musical. Yeah. I think it's enjoyable as it is. If there's a second season where you get just a little bit more characterization and story, that'd be cool. I mean, I'm sure if I actually played the mobile game, I'd get it, but I play like one actual mobile game and everything else is daily puzzle games because I don't like to sink money into mobile games.
Wait, you don't?
I mean, listen. Crunchyroll was kind enough to finally give me Princess Connect, so I'm happy.
Okay.
But yeah, Love Live Nijigaku is fun. Check it out on Funimation if you're so inclined.
All right. I guess that's it for the Quick and That then. Wait, that's
not as quick as I anticipated, but it's fine.
Yeah. All right. Well then, let's move on to our first and only full review for this episode.
So, Fire Force time. We're back. You can't see it, but I'm throwing up the horns. That's significant.
Oh yeah, corner time. Again, this is, of course, a continued series review, so take note, people. This is going to be full spoilers for both seasons of Fire Force that have been released so far. Be aware of that. So spoilers are go in 3, 2, 1. Let's rock. Let's dive back into some hot shonen action. Wait, that came out wrong. I'm sorry.
So, Fire Force Season 2 kind of picks off pretty much where we left off. So, when Shinra Kusakabe joined Special Fire Force Company 8, he wanted to use his gifts as a third-generation pyromancer to help save people from the ever-present threat of spontaneous combustion, fight the infernals that spontaneous combustion victims had been transforming into, and discover a way to end his world's fiery nightmare for good. Ever since beginning their war against the nefarious forces of the so-called Evangelist, Company 8 has unearthed world-shaking secrets that make Shinra's mission even more critical. There are double agents everywhere in the Fire Force, for one, and Shinra has also learned that his brother and mother, who he thought long dead in an infernal's blaze, are also agents of the Evangelist. With the fight more personal than ever, Shinra has vowed to not only end spontaneous combustion once and for all, but to find a way to save infernals, including his mother, from their monstrous fates. This season gave us a lot more to chew on this time around.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, we ended on a kind of big banger where it's something we could assume, you could guess that his brother was still alive and there was something going on, but we weren't really sure if he was the until that new OP hit, I guess that he was the leader, or at least some leader of the Evangelists, one word or another. And that was the reveal kind of at the end, what happened. And yeah. And we're continuing on from there with, I guess, the Evangelists making some big moves right from the get-go. We get a lot of new characters introduced in the show. Yeah, that's pretty much the first thing that happens. A new character is put on the field. That would be Inka. And she's this thief that can sense where and when a fire will break out and uses that to blackmail people in need of saving, which is quite shitty. And which should have given you a hint where that character is going. But it's also like, hey, okay, maybe she'll join the Company 8 and she will turn her life around and everything. Nope.
Not so much.
So much.
To call Inka an agent of chaos, I think, is probably the best descriptor of her character.
Yeah, she thinks she is a fourth generation fire manipulator. I don't even know what they're called. Fourth generation fire user. I forgot.
Pyromancer?
Pyromancer. Right, that's what they're called. And the thing that's also something we learn this season, like first generations become infernals through human combustion. Second generation pyromancers can manipulate and control flames, and the third generation can ignite their own flames and their force and shape and mold it around them and shit like that and do some weird, crazy shit with it. And Shinra is a third generation. I think Arthur is too. Most of Company 8 are third generations, if I'm not mistaken. And Inka thinks she's a fourth generation because she can manipulate fire, but she, is probably a third generation that hasn't fully awakened yet. So, fourth generations apparently are not supposed to control fire. I don't know why. I don't know why that suddenly would abruptly stop, but yeah, that's how it works. She's kind of like Daredevil in the beginning, only with flames.
Yeah.
Yeah, she can kind of predict where some fire might break out, but also control it in a way like she is controlling like the strings of destiny or shit like that. And
so she's kind of drawing a path to it.
Yeah, pretty much.
Tracing it, sort of, I guess.
Yeah, and can, make it happen at least to some extent the way she wants it to happen. Like she can also predict enemy attack patterns through the scent of their attacks and stuff like that. So it's interesting. And what else is also interesting is the twist with her, because I really thought initially it's like, yeah, she's kind of a shitty character, but that will be her arc. She will be turned around. She will join the Company 8 crew, and then Shinra will help her become a better person than she is right now. And also, in the beginning, how it's set up and with the evangelist trying to get a hold of her and everything, you expect her to be like this typical damsel that Shinra has to rescue, because that's how shonen works. But
no.
Then she kind of decides to join the villains, or rather resigns herself to what she thinks is her fate, because it's also her thing. Like her seeing basically the threats of fate and following it, and she believes that her reasoning could either be rooted in a wish to justify her evil impulses, or she's trying to punish herself due to a deep-seated self-hatred that she needs to overcome first. I'm not sure which is it, but it seems like basically giving herself to fate, or considering this fate is her way to deal with it or to cope with it. But yeah, she killed her henchman / buddy in cold blood. Or should I say hot blood? I mean,
that was like, Jesus.
Yeah, cold blood is kind of ironic given how she does it, but still. I'm not sure there is redemption waiting at the end of her story, and I don't know how much more development she'll actually get now that she has joined the Evangelist. But she kind of appears on and on throughout the season, like has a bunch of spots where she does her thing. But also the focus is on some of the other characters more throughout the rest of the second season. But, I mean, she can kind of see the future, and she sees that she will probably die if she takes this path, or at least end up with one eye and one arm, apparently. So there must be reason for her to pick this deadly path, especially since it contradicts her survivalist attitude that she displays at the beginning. So, I don't know. That might also be a front as well, so we'll see. But there's definitely more to her than I expected at first glance. Where did you come down on when it came to her character? Did you like her? We're like, oh, what's going on? Or
I don't know if I'd say I like her, but the way her story played out certainly made her more interesting than I thought. Because I was having the same expectation. She's going to join Company 8 and blah, blah, blah. And then she's like, just very straight to Shinra, no. And I was like, oh, this is not going the direction I expected. But I do wonder how smart of a decision that is for her. I mean, I don't see it ending well. So
me neither. I mean, like I said, she kind of sees that it doesn't. So we'll see if that comes true. But yes, there's a bunch of plot happening in season 2. Like there's a bunch of big reveals that are coming, and bunch of background story. We basically get filled in more and more to the, let's say, the beginning of this world, like the apocalypse and everything, the big cataclysm that happened, and we like through these small, what do you call it, paper cut intro sections or whatever that get extended more and more and fill you in more and more on what actually happened, how big fire happens, how much the evangelists are responsible for it, and we get to that. But all that is connected kind of to Amaterasu, like the big reactor thingy in the middle of the city that basically supplies the city with all its energy, and basically is like this new form of energy, a dollar or whatever it's called, right?
Yeah.
So
I just want to say that I don't think I've said this to you, and I didn't say it anywhere on Twitter or to anyone else because I didn't want to cause a big firestorm. But the story of Raffles the First it reminds me of something else.
Mm-hmm.
And that something else is Gwyn in the First Flame from Dark Souls.
Interesting. I mean, I'm not super familiar with Dark Souls lore, so...
There was a lot of parallels there where Gwyn and a detachment of his knights entered the kiln of the First Flame, and the fire is what brings life to the world of Dark Souls. And I'm just, every time they're talking about it, I'm like, Ōkubo, I think you may have copied somebody's notes a little bit. Like it's not a one-to-one, but I look at it and I'm like, this is getting the same vibe, dude.
Or they might draw from the same kind of mythology that we are not familiar with, right? I mean, there might be some common source there that they both consumed or read in some way, or are now drawing from. And I don't know what came first. I don't know how old Fire Force is when compared to Dark Souls. If they came out of kind of the same time, like the manga anyway, and in the first game. So I don't know. I don't want to throw accusations, but that might be true. Absolutely. I mean,
well, Dark Souls was 2011, and the manga for Fire Force was 2015. So.
Okay, well, yeah. Then if someone copied from someone, then Fire Force is definitely the guilty one here. But yeah, I can't say. But it's interesting. It's interesting that there's a commonality there.
Yeah, I mean, obviously there's things that aren't in Fire Force that maybe we haven't seen yet, but there was the Age of the Ancients in Dark Souls where Lordran was ruled by dragons, and then the advent of fire occurred, causing a disparity between heat and cold, life and death, light and dark, blah 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 blah. And then hollows came from the dark and all of that sort of stuff. So well, it's not a 100% like one-to-one sort of thing, but there's enough for me to be like,
slightly suspicious.
I see some things here.
Well, on that note, since I'm not familiar with Dark Souls lore, is there something like the first, we get introduced to this concept of the pillars in the season? It's like, which don't really quite have a grasp on yet what they are. Are they just very strong pyromancers? That have specific power and can also have the power of a dollar burst and a dollar links, which means they have special ability, very powerful flame powers basically, and they also can communicate over telepathy, which would be a dollar link, and can feel each other. And the first is apparently the first that is that, and that might still be trapped in Amaterasu, and that's the person or creature they used to make this new energy form happen. And apparently that happened throughout the globe. Is there something like that in Dark Souls where it's like this weird creature which might or might not be an alien, so a fire alien or something, like a burnish maybe, and that was responsible for kind of that new power introduced into the world and then was used by other forces, in this case the Evangelists in Dark Souls, this other knight faction, to do something with it to help people, but also maybe bring ruin at the same time.
I mean, there were different lords that gained power from the First Flame. I'm just going to read an excerpt from the Dark Souls wiki about the Age of Fire. Mm-hmm. With the dragons defeated, the lords took over the world. It was a prosperous era, and from it many nations were born. The land which the lords hailed from, Lordran, became the center of many adventures for those of other nations to engage in. The First Flame became linked to the bonfires throughout Lordran and gave power to them. In time, however, the flame began to fade. Desperate to ensure that their Age of Fire continued and afraid of the coming dark, Gwyn did everything to keep the flame lit. They linked the bonfires to humanity and shepherded the humans to kindle the flames. In contrast, the Witch of Izalith attempted to use her soul to create a new flame, but this did not work, instead birthing the bed of chaos and by extension the creation of chaos and demons.
That sounds very familiar, you're right. That sounds really like something that we're gonna get to eventually in Fire Force, where it's like, yeah, someone tried to save humanity, in this case probably Raffles, and then kind of fucked it up ultimately by what they did. And yeah, we'll see. That's interesting, though. We especially you should keep an eye on that. We'll see. Yeah. So the current.
Just another quick thing. Dark Souls is weird with its plot, though, because all of the Souls games, with the exception of maybe like Sekiro, which is, only tangentially a Souls game, because there's no plot in the game. You infer everything from the lore on the items and on the characters.
That's what always put me off of it. It's like, I kind of want a narrative. I don't want to look through fucking wikis to know what the fuck is going on.
I get that, but I think it does make it interesting in a way. But I get that you want the story there. But when you're trying to, especially I think what's interesting is when, the games come out and they're new and people are trying to piece everything together. Like I remember when I first played the original Demon's Souls, not this PS5 remake. Get this out of here. the PS3 version.
Hey, it looks good.
Definitely. If you're going to play Demon's Souls, play the PS5 version. But when the PS3 version came out and everyone was piecing together all of the lore in like this big giant puzzle about the Nexus and Latria, I was like, damn. Or not Latria, Boletaria. It's like, damn, this shit's wild. And the way it all fits together is really interesting. And God, one of the things that was really interesting about Demon's Souls in this, we have to get back on track to Fire Force. I'm sorry, everybody.
It's all right. I love our tangents.
One of the interesting things about Demon's Souls that's not in the remake, and there's a technical reason for that, is that in the original game, you had these loading screens where you would see the different characters, and sometimes you would see different interactions between them. Like there's two notable blacksmiths in Demon's Souls that, they have come to blows at several points, and there's a loading screen with that, and you see them fighting each other. And the only reason that's not in the remake is because the game's on a fucking solid state drive now. You don't need loading screens.
Yeah, absolutely. It's kind of cool, right, that you always can jump in right from the get-go, but I also miss, like, I recently played Spider-Man Miles Morales, and I miss the rides on the subway train where Spider-Man talks to just fucking random New Yorker people. And that was so charming in the original Spider-Man game, and that's, of course, not in there anymore because it's zip, and now it's done loading, so why would you do that? So
yeah, I think this will be the last thing about Soulsborne, but I think the parallels between it and Fire Force are interesting.
Yeah,
but
definitely.
I think that Ōkubo I think what he did was he took the parts that he liked and was like, I'm going to use this as inspiration. And you know what? That's cool. I'm not going to say, oh, he's a fucking dirty plagiarist. No, he definitely took what he liked and he twisted it to fit the narrative he wanted to write. I just think that it's interesting to look at Dark Souls from this perspective and see, oh, you can see the parallels and the things that he wanted to do with his story.
Definitely. So yeah, the current plan of the Evangelist seems to be to gather people with $1 bursts and cause another cataclysmic event like 250 years ago, which after, all the stuff with Raffles happened and stuff like that, and, creating the Great Flame and Amaterasu and yada, yada, yada. So, yeah, that's basically their plan, that they're trying to amass new knights, new people, join their ranks and stuff like that. That's, from the Evangelist's point of view, that's most of Season 2, really. And on the other side of things, we have Company 8, who's kind of trying to find out what is happening. Basically doing a bunch of shit, like first they are fighting the Evangelists, in the city, and then they're going on a joint operation to China, where some weird things are happening. And where the gang is getting high on gas, which is pretty funny. Really enjoyable. I mean, Fire Force in general is a funny show. I mean, some comedy really doesn't work, and we'll get to that in the end of the fucking review. But some cool shit in China. There's some remnants of our world, like cars overgrown by trees, which was very visually striking, and we hadn't seen that much, nature stuff. And, there's some actual animals there, and which is a super rare thing. I mean, also that they talk, or at least one of them. But, that's also a thing with that's Vulcan's thing, where it's like, hey, before the big fire, a lot of Earth was populated by animals, and I want to see those animals again and bring them back to life and make the Earth hospitable again for them. So seeing this kind of completely different part of the Earth, aside from the big cityscape, like steampunky cityscape that we've seen so far, mostly, this was a pretty cool diversion.
Yeah, it was. Of course we knew all along that there was the Great Cataclysm, but I guess I didn't quite understand until they went to what did they call it? The Tabernacle.
Yeah.
When they went there, just how fucked the rest of the world actually was. Because, I mean, there's nothing there except for that.
Most parts of the world are just peninsulas now.
Yeah.
It's just basically these very small islands here and there, and that's it. There's nothing else left. And then you have these big cities in certain parts, and that's it. And yeah, it's really kind of scary when you realize that. Like you said, there were hints, with what Vulcan said in the beginning, and just, some small world building here and there in season 1. But now we get a real grasp on what that actually means and what the world looks like. And it's harrowing. And, there was some really horrible shit happening. And I assume eventually we're going to have our flashback with some part of the evangelists that fill us in all of in the original story. Because, let's be honest, we can kind of assume that part of the story that we hear at the beginning of the episodes, where it's like, hey, this happened to Raffles and stuff like that, part of that is probably bullshit. And, there's some truth behind that might have happened, but also I think there's some spin on the story that actually didn't happen in parts, and there's some twists that will that might still jump in from around the corner. So yeah, I'm interested. I'm looking forward, quote unquote, to the flashback episodes where we actually see like a live report from someone who was alive during the Great Cataclysm and watch that shit happen. And yeah, it's probably going to be terrible. But
without a doubt.
Yeah, and so far, these picture book prologue segments have been trying to fill us in, and we see how much of that is actually true. The common thing is it seems like one woman is responsible for it, that the first pillar, apparently. We haven't really learned that much about her, aside from her later appearing in Shinra's mind space, kinda, with her, a dollar link, and talking to him and trying to convince him to give into his urges and to come over to her side and stuff like that. It's not really clear what her motivation is yet. Maybe she seems to be, the driving force behind the evangelist, but also she has maybe her own agenda. Does she really want the new cataclysm? Does she want them to do something else? That all of that has not really been made clear yet. We only get hints in this season. And that's pretty much it, basically, for those two factions. Kinda. It's like, hey, evangelists trying to, amass new people, new powerful pyromancers. Maybe try the rest, or they are actually trying to find the rest of the pillars. Wait, how many pillars are there supposed to be?
Right now, there's 6.
There are 8 pillars, apparently. They have found 6. And they're trying to find the other 2, I think. So, and Shinra seems to be one of them. Haumea, who we have already met in the first season, is one of them. Sho is one of them, Shinra's brother. So we got some pretty prominent and powerful characters in this show already being like the key factors or the key components that apparently factor into reliving or restaging the Great Cataclysm. So we'll see how that turns out. It's going to be a hoot, probably. And yeah, there's some other characters and faction that factor into all of this. One of the more important ones, or two of the more important ones, we actually, get two very important factions in this. One being Hajime Industries, who kind of supply all of the Fire Force with their tech, but also have some, let's say, maybe not so nice, or rather very sinister goals spinning in the background. It's hard to get a grasp on what they are actually trying to do as well in this season. I just know that their president is playing Game Boy all the time.
Yeah, what's up with that?
It's cool. It's he's going legit old school, and he's very dedicated to finishing those levels. So I can respect it, I guess. But yeah, I don't know. So they are a big part, and some part of the story is Company 8 dealing with them, and then again the evangelist attacking that, and that turns into a big 3-way battle royale. And then we also have the Holy Soul Temple, which was, at least according to legend and to scripture and everything, created by an evangelist. We don't know which one yet, really, who posed as Raffles, the guy who who was the saint that created Amaterasu and gave the world new life and shit like that. And then Evangelist posed as Raffles and created the Holy Soul Temple to steer people towards believing in the power of Adola and everything. Basically using that power and everything. And, becoming a source for it as well. And basically subjecting themselves to that power. So that Holy Soul Temple seems to be just a bunch of fanatics. And we have some characters clashing with them, and we got to that then because that's also fun, smart. But that's more of a small side tangent, like 2 or 3 episodes maybe, where they are more important. Get backstories on 2 characters in that regard, or 1 character finally. No, 2 actually. Yeah. But we get to once we get to the character section, which we can actually do right now. But yeah, that's basically this. That's the story of this season. It's like we get some more small vignettes and some big clashes here and there between the evangelist and the and Company 8, and then Hajime joins the ring at some point, and we have a small side story where 2 other characters fight a Holy Soul Temple. That's basically it. I kind of forgot what we actually end on. In plot-wise, like, was there a big reveal at the very end? Oh, yeah, well, there was a crucifixion. But yeah, there's some, small side reveals, like Captain Burns might be a bad guy, could be not quite clear yet. He was a bad guy at some point, it seems, because
his motives are not 100% clear.
No, not really. Like, the OP kind of teases or alludes to that him and Shinra might clash again, but then again, he was his mentor and they've been fighting on a regular basis. So yeah, it's not. He seems to be the one who saved Shinra and gave him guidance after his mom turned into an infernal, apparently, and his brother was taken away by the evangelist, but also maybe Burns gave his brother to the evangelist, so we don't fucking know. But I assume we will get filled into that in the 3rd season. But yeah, speaking of Shinra, let's get to the character section. So his kind of thing in this season is that he is wrestling with his inner demons, literally. Mm-hmm. Like, since he found out that the demon he deemed responsible for all the shit that happened to him was actually his mom, he doesn't know where to direct his pent-up anger and is easy prey for the first pillar, whoever that is. And like I said, she constantly invades his mind, kind of, and tries to steer him into a certain way and tries to push his buttons and everything. And yeah, that's kind of what he has to deal with this season, unless I'm forgetting something else. But I think that's mainly it. And aside from that, it's like he's there when, some of the plot happens. John, am I missing anything?
No, I mean, that's things... There are things that directly happen involving Shinra this season, but this isn't like his story this time around. It's all of these other things that are happening around him, and he's trying to, figure out what's going on, trying to deal with the first pillar, who I have my suspicions about. I'm not sure about you, but I'm sure we'll find that out in due time.
I don't want to make assumptions, for some people who maybe don't, so that still be a surprise, but we'll see. And also, mostly, my assumptions are wrong, so We'll see. It's just that they might be, legitimate in the moment, but I usually end up being on the wrong side of things. See My Hero Academia. Oh, speaking of My Hero Academia, like Shinra, while in the first season he was like this kind of, hey, I'm just gonna fucking storm into battle and do hero shit because that's what a hero does. He does more smart. He makes more smart decisions when it comes to fighting in this season. Like from the get-go, when they have the big fight in the first couple of episodes against the Evangelists with this new, big guy who's kind of the caretaker of Haumea. His name is Charon, and who's like this super powerful dude who kind of uses his voice as well. I think his voice or his aura, I'm not sure, to actually repel people and everything. And he's fun, he's big, he's brutal, and Shinra kind of, when fighting him, is able to calmly analyze the way Charon fights and uses his energy to actually find a more useful way to fight him when he realizes what Charon's power is and everything. So, or Charon's power is. And that's kind of cool, and I hadn't seen that in season 1, I think, as much anyway. And it reminded me of Deku from My Hero Academia and how he fights. So it's nice.
Yeah, definitely. There's definitely a lot of Shinra learning that he has to be smart about things, and I appreciate that. It's not big, but it's not insignificant.
Exactly. It's like the small things, small parts of the battles where you notice, like, oh yeah, he's actually taking his surroundings into consideration. He actually looks at how the enemies fight and doesn't try to do all the same shit all the time, and knows, okay, no, I need to be faster here, I need to be quicker in that regard, I need to do that instead of that, and yeah, it's cool. And he gets his rock and roll on, like he uses the chorus sign to knock Charon flat on his ass, and we get basically a Shin Rider kick. So it's kind of cool.
Get out.
Not for long though. Like that, immediately after that corner thing, he gets a brutal 2-hit wake up combo by Charon, which made me literally yell out, "Oh shit! Oh god!" in front of the screen. It looked painful.
Yeah. Oh man, but. Man, Shinra and Charon had some of the best fights this season. Like the one where they go through the building, and it's not like a shot from the outside. No, the action follows them into the building. It's this really dynamic sequence. It's like, fuck, David Production does some awesome work.
Yeah, it's really cool, and I've never seen something as dynamic, I think, in terms of camera movement in JoJo's. Although there's some great dynamic camera shots in those shows as well, but. They kind of reminded me of a scene from Promare. It just feels a bit more clean cut than Promare, because Promare is just visual overload all the time, which is fun. Don't get me wrong, but it feels a bit more clear and thus maybe a bit more impactful in Fire Force when they go through the building, and the way Charon lands as well is like.
Yeah.
And then he just stands on the top of the building where it's like just stops still, and it's pretty damn cool. If you can find that GIF, try to search this out, or that scene on YouTube or something. It's really cool. I think we already mentioned it in the sneak peek when we talked about the second season, because I think it's in the first or second episode, and it's really cool. And there are a bunch of cool fights in this show. Again, Fire Force, just from an action perspective, woof. Really, really cool shit, and especially the fire effects. Like, David Production put so much effort into making fire look good on the show, which is important because a lot of the fighting in the show is done with fire in some way or another. So, yeah, it's really cool. It's really great to look at. It's a lot of fun, and if you like shonen action anime, there are plenty of reasons to watch Fire Force for you alone. But of course, that's not the only 40 of the show. There are a bunch of cool characters. Let's get to my favorite one of the show, probably, who doesn't really get a lot of character development or anything in general. There is some in the show, we'll get to that. But he's just the best character. I'm sorry, I can't. Arthur is without a doubt the best character, maybe possibly the best character in a shonen anime I've seen in a long time. Not in, like the best, but he's up there. Like, he's he's just a joy. Every scene he is in is kind of gold. I'm always happy when he's on screen, when he's doing something, when he's saying something, because it's so incredibly dumb. It's so goofy, but he's so sincere. He is so fucking sincere. And that sells it.
He has his conviction, and he's going to stand on those convictions.
And we learn why. We learn why Arthur is so prone to indulging in his delusions in this season. It's sad. Like, it's a tidbit sad of a backstory with him being abandoned by his parents. But him going full LARP is hilarious.
Yeah.
It's just kind of great. And then they go to China, and then it turns out, is Arthur maybe a mathematical genius?
Oh my god!
Memorized pi because he's a member of the Round Table. But he has no idea what pi or Round Table means.
We just pulled that out, and was it Victor and
maybe not.
I don't think it wasn't Vulcan, was it?
Maybe. I don't know if Vulcan was with them when they went to China. Actually, I think he did. Yeah, I think he did. It might have been Vulcan.
Yeah. When Arthur just like straight up says, "Yeah, this is pi," to Victor and Vulcan, they both look at him like, I'm sorry. And he's just like, yeah, and he just is pointing out the different sequences of numbers, and he recognizes all of them. That's just like, this is the one thing you know?
Yes! Possibly the only.
It's so good.
And I just, that made me laugh so hard. Like, almost everything Arthur does makes me laugh hard, but he's also so very charming, and his beef with Shinra and everything, it could be super annoying, but it also kind of fun because you also realize, also they show that in the ED, that they really care for each other in a way. And I don't know, Vulcan summarized it perfectly at some point in the show by saying, "Thank goodness Arthur is so dumb, and boy is he right." So I can't really add anything more to that in terms of this character, but he's weirdly not shallow, but also he is. But in general, Arthur is just a bunch of fun. Like, if you want to see like basically a poster child for a fun side character, I think Arthur is just, I love that character. I think he's fantastic. But he's great. But we also had, like I said, we get a plethora of new characters introduced in this season as well. There's Captain Holge, I think that's how he's pronounced in the show, of the Sixth Company. Or is it Hogue? I'm not sure.
I think it's supposed to be like Well, they say Og, but I think it's like Hog.
Okay.
Yeah, the commander of Company 4.
Was it 4 or 6?
It's 4.
Okay. Yeah, he has a few screws loose, and seems to be a masochist.
Yeah.
Probably because he saw the truth, quote unquote, in the Great Fire, or came close to it. I don't know how he did it though, but yeah, he's a weapons master and loves being used as a shield by Arthur, so that he can take the pain and enjoy it, because like I said, he's a masochist. It's funny stuff. I mean, yeah, what's not funny is Hawk basically getting crucified in the last episode, which was quite a shock. I didn't see that coming, and we don't really know who did it yet, do we?
No.
Yeah, it's just, it happens, and it's it's shocking, because he was a super weird character, but he was endearing, and his battles kicked ass, so it's kind of a bummer.
He was the kick-ass old man. He was dope.
Yeah. So we get him, we get acquainted with kind of new characters, which were already, I think, introduced in season 1, but now get the spotlight, like Juggernaut, who can shoot off fire missiles and has something weird going on with his body. Yeah, and he has some great fights and he's part of one of the big emotional parts, big emotional high points when it comes to battles in the show. Like, his fight against the Whip Lady is awesome. And yeah, there's some part where he has to overcome his fear and everything, because he's kind of a country bumpkin boy and doesn't really have that much confidence and everything, but then, he steps up to the call in one battle, and it's pretty damn awesome. Not only animation-wise, but definitely animation-wise. And then there's Ogun, who is this badass who can create a plethora of different fire weapons, but also enhance his physical strength by applying flamey ink to his body. And when he lets loose against the demon Infernal, it's a sight to behold. We also get a Gotham JoJo's reference with him, so there's that.
Oh, yeah. They knew what they were doing.
Yeah. Muda's Warhead. Or Auras. I don't know. It was Auras.
I'm pretty sure it was Auras.
Auras, yes. But yeah, those are some of the new side characters who, again, don't play a super important role aside from their own little stories. But it's nice that they're there and they're fun and everything. They don't do that much, except for one character maybe. They don't do that much with the already established characters in the show. Iris, after learning that the evangelists are behind the Holy Soul Temple, she has a crisis of faith, but they don't do that much with it, really. Maki we get some insight on her, which is pretty nice at the back end of the show, which is, we learn about her and her family. Her family is kind of great, except for her brother, who is an idiot, but in general, I felt like kind of bad when watching them together because they kind of feed into her already damaged body image, which is like she's constantly like she's like we established in season 1, she's super muscular and she's battling with that because she kind of wants to be more feminine, but she has her reasons for being more muscular and trying to stand on her own and everything and being a strong fighter. But instead of supporting her, her family treats being buff like a flaw. Instead of praising her for her dedication. And also they put her kind of in a golden cage, and that's a shitty macho attitude, and I think that's what her brother does mostly. And it's super unnecessary because she can handle herself perfectly well. So I was kind of like...
On the one hand, I get it because, you're trying to keep your daughter/sister safe from harm, but at the same time... She can handle herself.
Exactly. Very well. She's a great fighter. And also, respect your child's wishes, you dumbasses. You might lose her eventually if you keep doing that. But yeah, that also has kind of a satisfying end, at least, that little story arc for her. And I like Maki. Maki is also a great character, one of my favorite ones in the show. She's a lot of fun. She's very capable. And her fight scenes always kick ass. She can kick major ass in general. She's really good. I was happy that she got a bit more of a spotlight when she didn't so much get one in season 1. But yeah, those were kind of our heroes. We also have more neutral characters that, get a bit expanded upon in this show and get even more screen time than, our, let's say, main hero characters. We finally get a glimpse of what Victor's and Joker's deal is. They want to uncover the truth behind the falsified teachings of the Holy Soul Temple, but they don't think going through proper channels will do the trick, so they're running their own little rogue operation, which we were wondering about in season 1. We knew that Licht was kind of a spy who infiltrated the 8th Company, but we didn't really know what he was trying to do, and especially not what Joker was trying to do.
I love when Victor finally out and says it to Company 8. Yeah, I was hired by Hajime as a spy. They just look at him straight on, and they were like, yeah, we figured that out. Just straight away, and he's like, okay.
I'm bad at being a spy. But yeah, Joker at some point joins up with Benimaru, who we've also met in season 2, because he assumes correctly that Benimaru has no love for the Holy Soul Temple, since all other religions have been kind of fused or collapsed into the teachings, the scripture of the Holy Soul Temple. And Benimaru and his people are the only ones still clinging to their old beliefs. Because of that, they have become an oppressed people, and Benimaru is definitely not happy with that. So makes him a very suitable candidate to join up with Joker, who wants to unearth the truth behind all that shit. And I kind of want a spin-off of Joker and Benimaru just wreaking havoc after
Hell yeah.
Those episodes. Yeah, their team up is so fun, and the dynamic is pretty cool. Them giving each other shit a bit, but also being kind of sympathetic to each other's, agendas and everything and motivations. And the fights are kick-ass. Like, some of the best visuals in this second season are when Joker and Benimaru fight the Knights of the Holy Soul Temple. And we learned that Joker was trained as an assassin for the Holy Soul Temple as a child and suffered a lot of abuse. And there's a tragic backstory, like when he flees at some point, he gets taken in by a nice family, which is immediately killed by assassins from the Holy Soul Temple. So, yeah, it's gruesome stuff, but we immediately understand why he does what he does. And I think, who's the guy? Was Burns the one who trained him when he was in the Holy Soul Temple? Because I'm pretty sure he was.
Pretty sure, yeah.
Yeah. So, at least Burns was working for the temple at some point. The question is he still? Is he trying to stop, Joker and Benimaru and everything else, or does he not want the truth come to light? Has he since cut ties with the Holy Soul Temple? Or that will be interesting to find out in the future. Yeah, but the fights against the Holy Soul Temple with Joker and Benimaru are great. Like, there's this scene where basically Joker douses the assassins from the temple with LSD, like through the smoke of a cigarette to beat them, which is genius. Obliteration through contact high.
Man, what's in your smokes, Joker? Can I have some?
Visually wise, that's also the reason why that is one of the most interesting scenes, because it gets really crazy at that point in the show. It's super fun. It's super fun to look at. But you earlier speaking about how Licht revealing himself to be a spy to the Eighth, and they we figured that out. He kind of only tells half of the truth there, because he says he's a spy for Hajime, which they have already figured out anyway, like you said, but he does reveal that he's in cahoots with Joker, which is kind of, in my opinion, a smart play to gain their trust. He's like, hey, I opened up to you, but also I still have my own thing going on, aside from being a spy of Hajime, because he's also playing Hajime, like he's only joined them to reveal the truth behind the Order of the Holy Soul Temple. And also, he probably wants to reveal what is going on because closed doors at Hajime and everything. So he has basically dedicated himself to revealing the hidden truth of the world. That's his thing.
Yeah, because I mean, it's weird because he's on both sides, but he's only playing one side, and I wonder how that will work out for him, and if he'll change. If he's, wants to play both sides or switch to the other at some point. I don't know.
Yeah, I wonder where his ultimate allegiance lies. Like, I mean, ultimately, it seems to be with Joker and what he was trying to do, but that might also be only partnership born out of necessity and convenience than actual, him having any kind of, I don't know, strong feelings towards Joker in regards to friendship or anything. And he spent so much time with the Eighth and is, being welcomed and everything. So he might shift allegiances there, ultimately. We'll see. It's interesting. And he's a fun character. But yeah, the last set of kinda maybe villains, but also maybe not villains, so more neutral characters, I guess, are Kurono and Nataku from Hajime. And Kurono, he is a super creep.
He's so weird because it's clear he kind of cares about Nataku.
Yeah.
But he also wants to punch down on everyone. So when he gets caught up in the middle of the fight with everybody else, he's like, yo, everybody here's stronger than me. I'm fucking out. It's like, all right, so the limit of your strength, but come on, man, really?
Yeah, you're right. He always wants to punch down. He enjoys that. He enjoys kind of oppressing weaker people than him, like bullying weaker people than him, and it makes him a super shitty character. But also, at some point, Nataku, who is like this child that gets experimented on by Hajime and has like these weird pyromancer powers and everything that he can't really control, but trying to learn to. But he's very low confidence and everything, and basically gets abused by Kurono pretty much. But at some point in the battle, he tells Nataku that it's okay to be weak. He likes him weak. That's what he tells him. It's like, you don't have to try so hard. You don't have to be the best at everything. It's fine if you're weak. Which he does. He does tell him that for selfish reasons. But it's still exactly what Nataku has to hear at that point, since he was pressured his whole life to improve himself. He needs to know that being weak and not living up to expectations is fine. And the only person who at this point is willing to tell him that, even though, like I said, for selfish reasons, is weirdly enough Kurono. So it's this super weird dynamic where it's like, Kurono is a really horrible person, but he does a really good thing for Nataku. So I agree with you. I don't know where to come down on one side when it comes to his character, because he's really easy to hate, but then he does a really good thing for this one character. That's really nice. So he's interesting. Let's call it that. Yeah. And his match with Shinra is pretty damn cool.
Oh yeah. Oh man. The way his smoke works, that's some, jeez. Like, he doesn't have, like, I guess not really fire power per se. It's just manipulation of smoke to create illusions and weapons for himself.
Yeah. It's pretty neat to see, and he has a creepy face and everything. So,
he calls himself Uncle Reaper for a reason.
Definitely. But yeah, so that is our neutral faction, I guess, who don't necessarily have an allegiance with either the really good or the really bad side, and instead are trying to do their own thing. And of course, we have the evangelists, which are kind of the villains. And we already talked about Inka right from the get-go, because she's the first new character that is introduced and kind of sets up the beginning of season 2. So I thought I would put her first. But of course, some of the other ones are coming back. We get new ones like Karon, but Haumea is coming back, and she has always been fun since season 1. She's like this delightful trickster who enjoys what she's doing, but also seems to be the smartest person in the group and everything, and seems to have a master plan. She kind of does what she wants. So Karon actually has to team up with Shinra to protect the pillars, since Haumea doesn't really care at some point if they get hurt or not. So it's really fun. She's kind of just like Inka, she's more of an agent of chaos than anything else. And that also kind of it cements again Karon as a badass when he almost blows up the moon. So Muten Roshingen right there. And we also get reacquainted, let's quote unquote, with Giovanni, who's one gross creepy motherfucker. We kind of could assume things from what we learned about him in season 1 and his dealings with Vulcan and everything, but yeah, they definitely expand on that, and it's wild and gross. But yeah, a lot of interesting characters that they don't do really interesting things with all of them. A lot of them are just there to fight. And yeah, that's probably one of the downsides of Fire Force that I felt, creeping up when watching this season. Like most shonen titles, Fire Force suffers from too many character syndrome, I guess. At least in parts. Like the stuff that heavily plagued My Hero Academia in its 4th season is also very apparent here. Instead of concentrating on developing their existing awesome characters, like, let's say, Obi, like, say, Arthur, they do something with Maki, which I really appreciated. But mostly they just rely on, in constantly introducing new characters, which is fun to look at because the character designs in Fire Force are also very striking and very diverse. Power sets are very diverse and everything. So it's definitely fun to look at. But you're always waiting for, there's a new character, there's a new villain, there's a new neutral character, and you get Kurono and Nataku. Those are all fun characters, they're all cool. But I always wish they would do more with their core set of characters. We haven't really learned that much about the main core of the command from Company 8 yet. Like, I assume there's still stuff coming about Obi, about...
Hinawa?
Hinawa, I think, yeah. And, we got something about Maki. We got... Maybe Arthur won't get any development. Let's be honest, that's not his thing, I guess, or he doesn't need it. But I still wait for some more for them to do some more with their core characters instead of just throwing new characters at us. Like I said, Maki gets a bit of development. Even Joker does, and it took Naruto until Shippuden, so 300 episodes or something, to give one of its best characters, Shikamaru, a good arc, which was arguably one of the best arcs in the whole series, to be honest. And so I'm willing to give Fire Force some rope here and be like, yeah, okay, some leeway. You still have time. But right now, they don't really seem to be too interested in doing that much with their main crew or, with the most interesting side characters or stuff like that. It's a lot of cool shit that we get. It's a lot of cool things. And like I said, cool new characters that get small arcs. But I'm still waiting for like the big development stuff with Iris, with Maki, with Obi, with Shinra, obviously, and everything. So I hope they actually will do that in season 3, whenever that comes, instead of, just throwing, again, a bunch of new characters at us and new evangelists. Don't get me wrong, they can still do that, but also do the other thing where you further develop your main characters, because, that's what the focus still should be on, in my opinion.
Yeah, I 100% agree with that.
Yeah. And speaking of that...
Uh-oh.
One of the biggest sore thumb in this season, again, like in the first one, is Tamaki, sadly, who is a core character and still has this stupid-ass gimmick where her clothes fly off, and now she's also a nun, like a sister. So, maybe that they can add a new fetish to her dumb gimmick, I guess.
It feels
because I don't
that
see
way.
any other reason. Yeah, it feels like it, because I don't see any other reason why they would do that, because she doesn't really have a motivation to be that. She is still a fighter. She can still support the crew in another way, and they actually do something with that at the very last episode or something in that regard, which I appreciated. But like, her fan service jokes still suck, man. They are not even funny. No. So what's the point besides showing her naked? And since it's played for laughs, it's not even sexy. So again, what's the point of this? It's played for laughs. It's not funny. It's not sexy because it's played for laughs. So stop it. And Firefox can do good jokes. Like I said, it has shown this time and time again. Case in point, spoofing the trope that all the red shirts of the second unit die right after getting married or having a kid. The old only one day away from retirement trope. And, one was looking forward to trying on a brand new pair of sneakers. See, that is clever and funny. Tamaki fan service jokes are not. So neither are the jokes making fun of Maki being buff and being insecure about it. Just by the way, right? We don't need that in here as well. It's not funny. It's just kind of demeaning. And the fan service jokes on Tamaki are very demeaning as well, and are also not funny. Like, nothing about this funny. It's the same joke over and over again. It's not creative. It's not like it creates super fun situation. It's like, that's great slapstick. It never works.
It never feels good. It's super just like
ham-fisted.
It's like demeaning. It feels half-assed.
Yeah, it feels super half-assed, and it's super lazy humor. It's not funny, and it does the character an enormous disservice. So you don't need this Fire Force. Like, why stick to these lame, unfunny horseshit running gags? I don't understand it. It might be a shown thing. I mean, One Piece also sticks to some running jokes. It's like, Zoro always loses his way. He is bad with directions, so he always ends up where he isn't supposed to. Sanji always is lecturing on women and everything, and Usopp is always lying and shit like that, and is also a scaredy cat. So, they always do something with that. But, if that gets overdone, it's annoying as well. And I've said this before. But Fire Force is even worse about that, because there are some parts in One Piece where these tropes work, where these tropes are still funny, because Oda can create some funny creations with these tropes. But Fire Force really can't when it comes to this Tamaki Lucky Ledger shit. It doesn't work. And the only running gag that is great in this show is Arthur, because they get creative with the forms his delusions and idiocy take.
Yes. Oh.
They are not lazy with that stuff. And that's the difference between him and Tamaki. Tamaki is always the same jokes. Literally the exact same joke. Like, she suddenly loses her clothes out of nowhere, and then accidentally jumps a guy or whatever, and then she's embarrassed, and the guy is kind of happy but also embarrassed and shit like that. And with Arthur, you get a bunch of different things where it's like, now I'm part of the round table, and now my weird stick horse is actually a steed and shit like that, and or whatever. My trustworthy donkey. Like I said, that shit is creative, and that shit is funny, and it surprises you. And Tamaki's shit doesn't surprise you. It's just boring, and it's lazy, and it's unfunny. And yeah, so that's why I love Arthur. That's why I hate Tamaki. It's not her fault. Like, it's just the writer's fault. It's like at one point, she literally says, "I'm pathetic. All I ever do is have others protect me." It's not your fault, Tamaki. The writer is to blame.
Because I do feel bad for her, because she has, like, you know, a legit moment with Juggernaut, and then it's like...
back to the old bullshit.
Yeah.
And I mean, she finally gets some development in the penultimate episode of the season. Took you long enough, Fire Force. But they need to follow that up with some actual development and not rely on the stupid fucking jokes for her anymore. That's probably the thing I want most from season 3. Aside from all the, you know, what is behind this? More plot revelations. Give me more development for our core characters. Also, that also plays into this. But please, Ōkubo, stop it with this stupid jokes. They are not funny. They're garbage. So if we can get anything from season 3, just you can easily cut that shit out. It's not like, hey, it's in a manga, so we have to put it in the TV show. Just fucking, that's what an adaptation is for.
Mm-hmm.
You subtract the parts that don't work and maybe add some parts in that enrich the experience and leave everything else that already worked as it is. So we got a clear thing that doesn't work in this show or didn't work in the source material. So take it out. We don't need it. It's filler, and it's lame, and it's garbage, and it's boring, and it's demeaning to the character, and it doesn't do anything good for the show. So fucking get it out of here. I don't want it. And we definitely don't need it. So yeah. One can only hope. But I don't want to end on a negative note. So let's highlight a few more random positive things in this season that I enjoyed. Talking about visuals again, the Sakuga in the first episode was bonkers, and there's a bunch more where that came from. Like I said, the fight against Charon is amazing. Like the fights between Joker, Benimaru, and the Holy Soul Temple is amazing. The Juggernaut fight is great, and we got a lot more shit. Just in terms of visuals, hey, if you like your shonen action, fucking watch Fire Force. You will have a good time. The sound editing is fantastic and impactful in this show. I love it to death. We get a comedic bit in the beginning where the girls read out Shinra, which was hilarious, and so was the nude calendar that we got. That was a clever nude joke. That was a clever sexy joke. I enjoyed that. Thank you. At least you got creative with that, but also, again, that didn't relate to Tamaki, so why am I even surprised? So, like I said, in terms of visuals, there is at least one impressively animated and choreographed action scene in almost every episode. And like we mentioned before, Shinra throwing Charon through the building looked amazing. There is this great scene where they drive this truck with the mounted gun, and it turns out Obi is bad at shooting video games, so Vulcan compensates by ramming it into the target.
Yes!
So he can just for point blank fucking unload. It's great. I like it. And
that was so good.
Yeah, I think the director of Diamond's is Unbreakable storyboard at least part of that episode, which I think showed in certain parts. And yeah, again, the show is beautiful, not only in the fight scenes, like the night scenes in episode 11 are a highlight in my opinion. Like the city looks just great.
Yeah. Everything
has a kind of muted glow to it, which is a nice change of pace compared to the cartoony, hyper-colorful comic book visuals, you know, with big explosions and everything throughout the majority of the show. So the show Fire Force can do both. And I really appreciated that. Some of the backdrops in the show are gorgeous. Like, for example, the scenery in the episode where Shinra and Iris go to the baptism church. Like, that's this very beautiful, colorful, very clean look with the water around it and everything. That's also really nice. And last but not least, of course, there's a Soul Eater reference in the same episode. Even twice, I would say. The bar Assault goes to for research has Death Scythe sitting at the table next to him, complaining that his daughter, which is Maka, which is one of the main characters from Soul Eater, doesn't want to have anything to do with him, which is like a running gag in Soul Eater, where this guy Death Scythe is a shitty father, basically, to his daughter Maka.
Well, I missed that entirely because I don't know like basically nothing about Soul Eater.
Yeah, that's why I bring it up, because that jumped out to me immediately. It was like, oh, Maka, I'm so sorry, and she hates me, my daughter hates me, but I try my best. And he does in the original show, but the problem is, he's a ladies' man, and he hangs out at a bar with ladies, with hostesses on a regular basis, and his daughter doesn't really like that, so she calls him a shitty dad all the time, even though he's the literal Death Scythe of the Grim Reaper in Soul Eater. He's a cool guy, but, it's all about transforming weapons in that and everything, who are actually people, or people who are imbued with the souls of weapons and everything. But yeah, it's that was just a neat bit, that being in there and like, hey, one of the references we talked about. Like you said, you didn't think anything of it because you didn't know Soul Eater, and it wasn't like super in your face. It was just a nice side gag with Death Scythe sitting next one compartment next to our character from Fire Force, and just complaining about his daughter not liking him.
But then they dropped something else on us at the very end of the season, which was the moon from Soul Eater, which I wonder. Which makes me wonder how Fire Force connects to Soul Eater, or if they're just trying to say that Fire Force is the sun to Soul Eater's moon, or something like that. I don't know.
Maybe. I wonder if they will follow up on that in some regard, if there will be some more connections to Soul Eater. If they actually do a weird crossover thing at some point, I would be super surprised. I don't expect that to happen, because those universes are so completely different. And I don't see there, aside from dimension hopping, maybe there be any real. I feel like Death Scythe being there was just a side gag. He is not really supposed to be that character, but he's just a reference in there. I don't think they actually share a universe. That would be super weird, because Soul Eater has this weird Halloween-esque world, and nothing in the world of Fire Force looks like that. So I don't think part of the rest of the world looks like that. So I can't see that happening. So I think it was just there for funsies, just for people who are acquainted with Ōkubo's earlier work. So I appreciated it. I don't think they will do anything more with that than what they did in the season. Maybe a bit more references. Maybe on the side you see maybe Kid, or maybe Soul Eater, or maybe Maka just standing around looking maybe at a window in the shopping street or stuff like that. I can see something like that happening, but aside from that, I don't think they will really do anything with that story-wise. I would be very surprised if they do so.
If they do, then I guess that means I got to go back and watch and or read Soul Eater to get the full story.
Not a bad idea. The problem is the anime of Soul Eater looks fantastic because, of course, it's Bones. Has an original ending, though. So I don't know how much it diverges from the manga, but I think at a certain point it really does, because the manga kept going for a while after the anime was already wrapped up, if I'm not mistaken. So maybe watch the anime to a certain point and then keep on reading the manga might be the best choice, because you get the nice visuals that you shouldn't miss out on. Also, a fantastic ending by Abington Boys School. And yeah, Strength is one of my favorite anime songs, period. I love that shit. It's amazing. And just the animation that ED is amazing as well. So, and the first OP of and the second OP, both of Soul Eater are also great. Like Paper Moon is great song as well, and it's also used in the actual show for a great moment of Black Star. Yeah, short advertisement for Soul Eater, but that is definitely a fun show, and also on the visual side of things, really impressive and easy on the eyes. But yeah,
I think this season of Fire Force, as far as the plot was moving along, it felt a lot more consistent throughout.
Yes,
because it's I can't really describe it because I'm doing it with my hands. But the first scene was kind of like, it starts off real strong and then kind of dipped in the middle, and then towards the end it picked up again. And it was nice to see that they were able to keep it exciting and interesting throughout this time. I think it's because this season had a different director, so I don't know.
Really? I didn't pay attention to that.
I don't know if that's like the big thing that could have made that difference, but yeah, the first season was directed by Yuki Yase, and the second was directed by Tatsuma Minamikawa. So,
I mean, it could also be that the manga at that point also got more streamlined and actually more focused more on the plot than actually introducing, certain factions to you and certain characters. Although, again, second season throws a lot of new shit at us, but at the same time, it also reveals a lot more shit about its worth than its first season did, which was more focused on actually setting up the whole thing and introducing us to our core set of characters with a lot of the character people from the Eighth Company and everything, and showing us how the world actually, some parts of the, the Fire Force departments and everything works and so on. And yeah, you're right. I feel like Fire Force Season 2 felt a bit more, even though it had a bunch of different factions, a bunch of different characters, felt a bit more straightforward, maybe than the first season. And also had the stronger story stuff. Like I said before in our review of the first season felt great at the beginning, great at the end, but it kind of went a bit into a, let's say, valley, or was not as enticing or not as interesting in its middle part, because that's when Benimaru gets introduced, who is a cool character, don't get me wrong, but that part of the story wasn't as enticing to watch and felt more like of a sidestep and not actually moving forward. While in season 2, you constantly have the feeling that the show is moving forward in one way or another, at least for, one faction. So I agree. It was a cool season, definitely, and I'm going to keep on watching Fire Force, most definitely. I enjoyed it a lot. I wonder what's going to happen next. I don't know if we get some definitive teases at the end of the season. The Soul Eater Moon doesn't count. So I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen next. I assume we're going to get filled in more on, what actually happened in the Great Cataclysm, what Haijima's deal is, actually, what the Holy Soul Temple is maybe trying to do and stuff like that, what Byrne's motivation is behind all of this. And, I mean, we know what the Evangelists want to do, but we still don't know all the pillars yet, and we don't really know anything about the first pillar, really, or that much anyway, and why she's so interested in Shinra, aside from him being a pillar. But yeah, so I expect a lot of that to be further revealed or iterated on in season 3. So that's going to be a lot of fun, I assume. So yeah, where can people watch it if they want to catch up, John?
You can watch it on Crunchyroll/Verve. They kind of share stuff back and forth. It's on Funimation. They've been kind of dubbing it. They haven't dubbed all of it yet, but I think the rest of it is coming soon. It's also on Hulu, Netflix, depending on where you live, and also on Wakanim.
Yes, indeed. So get on that. If you like your shonen action shows, you can do a lot worse than Fire Force. Tamaki aside, this is a cool show with cool characters, definitely, and some really great fights, and just great action in general. And I was never bored. I enjoyed the season from beginning to end, and David Production is doing their damnedest to make this look good. And yeah, it's a lot of fun. If that is your genre, like it is for me, and like it is partially for John, go for it. I'm pretty sure you will enjoy it. So, speaking of enjoying things, I think there's still one little thing we have to do. Best of the season! Alright, best of the season time, everybody! John, what do you feel like? How do you feel about the shows that we had this season? What is your impression? What do you think? Where is your mind wandering?
We had a lot of good stuff this season.
We did. We didn't have that many reviews, but most of what we watched was pretty damn great. So it's tough for me. Maybe I go first for a change. I think you always go first.
Yes, please, and then I can figure it out. I don't know.
Yeah. Okay, let's start with Golden Kamui, which I love. I always like Golden Kamui. I always love Golden Kamui to an extent. I feel like it wasn't as consistently hype as the second season for me. There was still lots to love in the third season. There was still lots of cool stuff, a lot of cool characters, a lot of cool revelations. I don't know. We have given that award to Golden Kamui before, and I don't know if I want to give it to Golden Kamui again for this season, considering the other contenders. So
yeah, I mean, I've given it to it twice because it deserved it, but
it definitely did. But it's tough. So yeah, not this time, Golden Kamui. I guess, even though in any other season you might have deserved it again. Fire Force Season 2, like we just elaborated on, was a lot of fun as well. But in the face of, again, the other contenders on this list, it doesn't feel like the right choice because it's also still going, because it's, a basic shonen thing, which is not a bad thing, don't get me wrong. But, it's a tried and true formula, and it's also like, hey, parts of this we have maybe seen before and even done better in certain parts. And yeah, I think we both enjoyed it a lot. But again, given what other shows we watched, it doesn't feel right to give it best of the season. So for me, it either comes down to Haikyuu or Akudama Drive. And I'm still wavering. It might depend on what John chooses ultimately. Haikyuu already got my very first best of the season award ever for its third season, which was arguably a bit better than season 4. But regardless, it's still the best sports anime I've ever watched so far, so it's more than deserving of a second award, maybe? And I really like what they did with Hinata in this season. I really like what they did with Kageyama. I liked what they did with the opposing teams. I think the Foxes were a great team. I think what they did with Nekoma was great, and that's probably going to be even better in the 5th season, which is also why I'm like, yeah, maybe not this season, because season 5, being mainly about the long-awaited fight between Nekoma and Karasuno, I can't even see anything else unless it's, I don't know, maybe a really strong season of My Hero Academia, or I don't know, super surprised that I can't see anyone taking that award from Haikyuu in that season. So if we get that, let's hope. Yeah, I'm probably gonna give my best of the season award this time to Akudama Drive. It's a unique anime original show, which are far and few between anyways, and it oozes a lot of passion and throws a bunch of cool characters, twists, and themes at you. It has a cool, pretty smart story, that pays homage to a lot of cyberpunk tropes. You get the feeling that both the writer and the director were in love with movies and tried to make it, not annoying, but put their love in this show and try to use it in a way that made sense for that material. And yeah, it also looks fucking great. And I love small, powerful shows that come out of nowhere and rock my anime world, and this is definitely one of those. So I'm gonna give my best of season 4 to Akudama Drive, and I feel very good about it. And I think if you can get your hand on the show in an uncensored form, that is the show I would recommend you definitely watch from this season. Because, like I said, it's a lot of fun, great characters, cool plot, cool action from beginning to end, cool visuals, like really creative, stylish visuals, great soundtrack, like just the whole package in like this small 12-episode long show that you can basically binge if you start early enough on a Saturday or on a Sunday, and you will have a good time. So, yeah, I think Akudama Drive is very deserving of the Best of the Season award when it comes to my choice. But John, what is your ultimate decision?
Well, 3 of the shows you listed are on my short list as well. What a surprise.
Mm-hmm.
And I agree with you on Fire Force and Golden Kamui. Like, I could easily just be like, yes, Golden Kamui, because I think it's just awesome. I think it's so much fun and just this fucking thrill ride of a show. And like I said, there's still more to go with Fire Force as well. Obviously, there's still more to go with both shows, really.
Yes, absolutely.
Akudama Drive came along. It's this nice self-encapsulated story, and that was like obviously filled with love for the production. And then I was surprised. I was surprised by Talentless Nana. And I liked that show a lot too. And I want more of that as well. 3 of the shows on my list I just want more of.
That's a good sign.
So it comes down to, what do I want more of the most? And I think it's kind of a foregone conclusion that there's going to be a 4th season of Golden Kamuy. There's going to be a 3rd season of Fire Force. Both of them are really big, really popular, really great shows. In Akudama Drive was super good too, and I really enjoyed the hell out of that. But since this is a show about letting us have our cake and eat it too, I think I'm going to swerve a little bit and pick the one that intrigued me the most. Is probably not going to get a 2nd season, but I definitely want to see more of. I'm going to pick Talentless Nana.
Interesting. I didn't expect that. I would have expected you to pick Golden Kamuy, honestly. So,
I mean, honestly, that should be the pick, but just fuck. I went into Talentless Nana being, and I said this when I reviewed it, being like, this is just going to be indexed for kids. Oh no. Oh, it's more than that, boyo. And I was like, fuck, this was really good. It was way more interesting than I thought, and I want more of that. I want to see where the story goes. Like, there's real weird shit with Nana's past where she got fucked up over her parents' death, and there's this shadow organization that's pulling the strings on her actions. I want to know more about that stuff. I want more of that. So it got the hooks in me way harder than I was expecting, and that's what I want. That's what I'm giving my award to, because it just had the intrigue and the strength to keep me going from week to week.
The list of shows that you love that I still need to watch grows. Plays further than the universe still being on top there, and followed by Talentless Nana now. So, but I'll get to it once I'm done past Black Clover, I guess. There are a bunch of shows I want to check out that I'm not going to review, but that I still want to watch because I've heard good things about them. So yeah, Talentless Nana now is on the list as well, and apparently now it's on our best of the season list. So, all right, if you want to have to decide watching 2 shows this season from this season, or only 2 shows, you only have the time for 2 shows. You can't go wrong with Akudama Drive and Talentless Nana because those are both fun shows. And John and I explained to you why in detail in full reviews and again in this best of the season segment. So check out those 2 shows. Check out any of the other shows that we reviewed that where you liked what you heard. And that's it for Anime Brain Freeze for this season. Not as many episodes as in other seasons, but that might change again next season. We don't know yet how many actual reviews we're going to have there, but there are a bunch of shows that we watched, so who knows? Might be more episodes again then. We'll see you, or we'll talk to you again once the premieres for spring roll around, and we're going to do our sneak peek and our first review from winter season. So look forward to that. Until then, stay, I guess, warm, since it's still really cold here. And as usual, stay healthy, wear a mask, and if you can get a vaccination shot, please try to do so. And let's hope we can get out of this mess by the end of this year. And it would be nice to actually go to an anime con at some point again.
Hopefully, maybe next year.
Yeah, we'll see. But anyway, talk to you soon, and see you and Fresh Anime next season. Bye.
See yas.
And that is a wrap on the 109th episode of Anime Brain Freeze. All the music in our show is from the Double Dragon Neon soundtrack by the amazing Jake Kaufman. Please go to vrit.bandcamp.com and check out his awesome work. Our show is available on most of the popular podcast services, but it's always worth visiting animebrainfreeze.com for a review index and more. Leave us comments and questions on YouTube, follow us on Twitter at AnyBrainFreeze, or send an email to animebrainfreeze@gmail.com. We would love to read your feedback. Thanks for tuning in, we hope you had a good time, and please join us again on our next episode. Macht's gut!
So long, everybody.
Next time on Anime Brain Freeze!
Break the curse. Live to love.
And become the Sorcerer Supreme.